Have you ever imagined what it would feel like to be unshakable? To stand in the middle of criticism, rejection, loss, even betrayal, and remain steady? Have you ever longed for the day when that quiet inner ache finally disappears? That silent tension you carry beneath your composed exterior? That private anguish no one sees because you've mastered the art of appearing fine? Maybe you're exhausted from pleasing, from performing strength, from maintaining an image that demands resilience at all times, when in truth, all you wanted was a moment of rest, a moment where you didn't have to be untouchable. But here is something few dare to say clearly. As long as you try to escape pain, it will continue to govern you. As long as you numb yourself, armor yourself, conceal yourself, you remain hostage. Hostage to the opinions that sting. Hostage to the actions that disappoint. Hostage to the silences that echo long after the room has emptied. This is not weakness, it is human. Most people live this way. The only difference is that some hide it more convincingly than others. Carl Jung once said that we are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become in response to it. And this is where the turning point lies. Strength is not about hardening yourself against the world. It is not about becoming emotionally numb, indifferent, unreachable. True strength is integration. It is bringing into consciousness what currently operates in the shadows. Because real power is not the absence of pain. It is the clarity of knowing who you are, even when you are wounded. If you are still here, it is not accidental. This conversation is for the one who feels pierced by everything, the one who senses an emotional vulnerability that others seem not to share, the one who wonders why certain words cut so deeply, why certain losses destabilize so completely. You feel as though others hold a power over you that you cannot explain, but it does not have to remain that way. Yet to move forward, you must confront truths that may sting. And perhaps, for the first time, that sting will liberate rather than imprison. Let us begin with something uncomfortable. You believe what hurts you exists outside of you, in someone's rejection, in someone's abandonment, in someone's betrayal. But none of these experiences possess independent power. They wound only when they touch something already exposed within you. What hurts is not merely the event, it is what the event awakens. The old narrative you repeat, the unresolved memory you never processed, the insecurity hidden beneath competence, the emptiness masked by pride and forced composure. Jung taught that external pain mirrors internal fragmentation. The world does not create your wounds, it reveals them. This is why two people can endure the same circumstance and respond in radically different ways. One remains centered, the other collapses. It is not about the event, it is about the internal echo. And here is another difficult truth. Part of your suffering persists because you still believe you can control how others treat you. If you are kind enough, strong enough, understanding enough, impressive enough, then perhaps no one will hurt you. But control over others is illusion. And as long as you cling to that illusion, you live in tension, trying to anticipate every variable, prevent every disappointment, neutralize every risk. You exhaust yourself attempting to predict the unpredictable. If you truly want relief, the path is paradoxical. Stop defending yourself from pain. What you require is not more control, it is more awareness. As long as your peace depends on others behaving differently, you remain captive to their actions. Freedom begins when you realize that nothing external holds authority unless something internal grants it access. And this is where the real arena lies, the unconscious. What remains unseen governs you. What remains unexamined directs you. What remains unintegrated masters you. In the next part, we descend deeper into that hidden terrain, because transformation does not occur at the surface. It begins in the layers beneath conscious thought. If this resonates, consider subscribing to continue this exploration. Support helps these conversations reach those who need them. Now, let's confront perhaps the most unsettling realization of all. You have been told that you are in control of your life. But are you? Not if you move through it on autopilot. Not if you react without understanding why. Not if emotions surge from unknown depths. Not if you make choices you later undermine. Until you know what drives you from within, you are not leading your life. You are being led. Carl Jung expressed it with unsettling clarity. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Read that again. What you label as destiny, what you describe as bad luck, what you believe is simply the way things are, may in fact be unconscious material steering your reactions, the anger that erupts unexpectedly, the sadness that descends without visible cause, the disproportionate hurt over a single comment. None of it is random. These are signals, messages emerging from neglected regions of your psyche, parts of you that were once silenced, dismissed, or buried because they felt inconvenient, shameful, or overwhelming. Jung called this territory the unconscious. It is not a vague mist of abstract thoughts. It is structured, alive, dynamic, a living archive of memory, trauma, desire, fear, and unresolved emotion. And what remains unexamined does not become inactive. It becomes influential. You ask yourself why certain words devastate you while others brush them off. Why a minor rejection feels catastrophic. Why one silence feels like abandonment. Because those moments strike exposed nerves. And if they are still exposed, it is because they were never healed, only hidden. You did not resolve them. You suppressed them. You swept them beneath the psychological carpet. And now, you continue to stumble over what you refuse to lift. Jung also reminded us, we cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not free you. It tightens the internal knot. And what have you been doing? Judging your reactions, shaming your sensitivity, silencing your discomfort. As if self-criticism could dissolve what requires understanding. But the unconscious does not disappear when ignored. It simply finds more disruptive roots. It appears in relationships that repeat the same emotional wound. In self-sabotaging patterns you swear you will break, yet reenact. In anxiety that arises precisely when life seems stable. This is not coincidence. It is an invitation. Your unconscious is attempting to surface, and you keep pressing it down. You say you want to stop being hurt, then stop fleeing from yourself, because as long as your unconscious remains unknown, it governs you. And the more fiercely you try to defend yourself against external pain, the more vulnerable you become to internal fragmentation. There is a way out, but it does not involve more defense. It requires integration. Becoming untouchable is not about resistance. It is about self-knowledge so deep that external events lose their authority over your inner foundation. So what does it truly mean to be unshaken? Why does genuine strength emerge not from armor, but from acceptance? Let us continue. Most people believe the solution to pain is emotional withdrawal. They build walls, craft personas, develop armor. They declare, nothing affects me anymore. I don't care. I'm done feeling. Yet internally, the wound remains active. Because the issue was never feeling. The issue was not understanding what was being felt. and why. Emotional confusion does not arise from sensitivity. It arises from disconnection from oneself. Jung once said, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but when touching a human soul, be just another human soul. And that soul you conceal behind composure, behind the image of control and invulnerability, is not weak. It is unheard." Emotional strength is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is not avoidance. It is not suppression. It is integration. It is turning toward what you have avoided, naming it, holding it in awareness without running. You do not become untouchable by isolating yourself from the world. You become untouchable when nothing external can weaponize what you have already embraced internally, when your fears are acknowledged, when your insecurities are owned, when your shadow is recognized rather than denied. Then something shifts. You stop reacting impulsively. You begin observing. You choose your response rather than being driven by unseen triggers. You are no longer pulled like a puppet by invisible strings. And that, not emotional numbness, is freedom. Jung called this process individuation, the unfolding of who you truly are, not who others expect you to be, not who you believed you had to become in order to be accepted, but who emerges from within, from the meeting point between light and shadow, between ego and unconscious. Individuation is not about perfection. Jung was clear about this. It is about integration. You do not need to become better. You need to become whole. And here is the truth that is rarely spoken. The more you run from pain, the more relentlessly it pursues you. The more you attempt to remain unaffected, the more fragile you become. But when you face your wounds directly, when you accept yourself in your beauty and your shame, your nobility and your pettiness, something changes. The external world loses its power to dismantle you. Yet this path demands courage. Courage to look inward without distortion. Courage to abandon the masks that once protected you. Courage to feel fully. Because pain is not random. It contains information, and within it lies the key to transformation. Let us descend further. You were taught early to resist suffering. You learned that crying was weakness, that emotional intensity was instability, that strength meant composure at all costs. So you began to avoid, to suppress, to distract. But suppressed pain does not dissolve. It mutates. It reappears as anxiety, as unexplained anger, as apathy, as impulsive self-sabotage. Ignored pain carves tunnels beneath the surface, until one day the structure collapses. Jung saw suffering differently. He understood pain as communication, the language of the deeper self, calling for attention. He once described depression as a lady in black. If she appears, he said, do not push her away. Invite her to sit. Listen, but you do not listen. You silence. You distract. You stay busy. You numb yourself. Anything to avoid the central question. What is this pain trying to reveal? Suffering intensifies when you are divided within yourself. One part of you longs for growth. Another clings to familiarity. One part seeks expansion. Another fears loss of control. In that inner friction, pain is born. Growth hurts. Letting go hurts. Dismantling outdated identities hurts. Every transformation is a symbolic death of beliefs, attachments, illusions. Yet in the ruins, something new becomes possible. When your certainties crumble, when vulnerability is exposed, when performance collapses, you finally encounter yourself without distortion. And in that moment, suffering becomes sacred, because it strips away everything false. Jung understood this deeply. Pain is not system failure. It is process. It marks the beginning of individuation, not its end. Most retreat before crossing the dark valley. They distract themselves, return to superficial comfort, avoid the descent. But if you have remained here, it is because something within you is prepared to cross. And crossing changes everything. Few initiate individuation consciously. Fewer complete it. Because this path does not flatter the ego, it dismantles it. To become who you are means first unlearning who you believed yourself to be. And that realization wounds more deeply than external rejection. You begin to see that much of your identity was constructed for survival. You are not your achievements. You are not your trauma. You are not the persona you crafted to earn admiration or avoid abandonment. Those were strategies, necessary once, but incomplete. Survival is not the same as living. Individuation is life calling you beyond survival. It is when the unconscious pushes forward what has been hidden, the rejected, the distorted, the repressed. Jung wrote that the persona is a mask of collective convenience, and masks must eventually be removed. This feels like tearing away your own skin. But it is here that true resilience forms. You become unshaken, not because nothing touches you, but because you have already endured the fire of self-confrontation. You have looked at your shame, your dependency, your anger, your fear, and instead of fleeing, you have said, "I see you." When darkness is acknowledged, it loses tyranny. This clarity does not depend on approval. It does not require validation. It does not collapse under criticism. You no longer need universal affection. You no longer need to dominate arguments. You no longer need to appear strong. Because identity is no longer outsourced. Emotional armor is not a shell. It is a center, a core built from integration, where all parts of you coexist in awareness. Storms still come, pain still visits, but you do not fracture, because you no longer live at the surface of yourself. You inhabit your depths, and from that depth, something unshakable is born. The depths. But depth carries a cost. Not isolation in the literal sense. You may still be surrounded by people, but a subtler loneliness. Because few are willing to descend where you are choosing to go. Most remain at the surface, in personas, in distraction, in the fear of feeling too much. And when you begin to liberate yourself inwardly, a natural distancing occurs, not from arrogance, not from superiority, but from alignment. You do not withdraw because you reject others. You withdraw because you no longer fit the spaces where you once hid. That is not pride, it is maturation. And this brings us to the final realization of this journey. It is not brute strength that protects you, it is clarity. Consciousness becomes your shield, not because it blocks life, but because it illuminates it. Let us finish this crossing together. There is something that must be said without ambiguity. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will protect you from external pain if you remain unconscious of your inner world. Words will continue to wound. Rejection will continue to sting. Loss will continue to destabilize you until you awaken. And awakening is not mystical. It is not dramatic. It is not a single revelation that changes everything overnight. It is a daily decision to look inward even when discomfort rises, to assume responsibility for what you feel, to stop outsourcing blame to the past, to other people, to destiny. Jung wrote, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." You have spent years resisting the fear of inadequacy, resisting the ache of loneliness, resisting the memory of not feeling seen. And in that resistance, you attempted to compensate by controlling everything, by perfecting yourself, by appearing strong, but control exhausted you. Perfection drained you. The mask suffocated you. Now you see something different. Emotional immunity is not rigidity. It is awareness. It is understanding your triggers before they explode, recognizing your patterns before they repeat, seeing your wounds before they dictate your reactions. When you know your inner landscape, the external world loses its leverage. You still feel, but you do not drown. You still experience pain, but you do not fragment. That distinction changes everything. Protection does not come from retreating from life. It comes from entering it consciously. Those who remain on the surface are shaken by every wave. Those who dive discover something else: stillness beneath turbulence, stability beneath chaos, a quiet power that does not depend on circumstance. And this is where you are heading. When you begin to live from integration, from presence, from acceptance, the world may still test you, but it will struggle to find your weak point, because your weak point has become conscious. If something in this journey resonated with you, acknowledge it. Write, "I choose awareness." Let this be more than reflection. Let it be intention. This is not about surviving by pretending to be invulnerable. It is about living truthfully. And this is only one step. The next conversation continues the path. Transformation does not occur in fragments. It unfolds through commitment. So keep walking, because real freedom is not found at the beginning. It is found when you refuse to stop.